That was such a fun trip. I really hate to get rid of this scrapbook.
I know, just another thing to look at and try to decide what to do with.
It just takes up too much room. Oh, hi. Hi, we're trying to figure out what to do with this scrapbook. We're downsizing from our 1,400 square foot house, our Sticks and Bricks, down to a 110 foot travel trailer. So if you want to know what the highs and lows are for that downsizing process, stick with us after the intro and we'll be right back to go over that and find out what we do with this thing.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Angie.
I'm Rhonda.
And we are
Adventures in No Madness.
We are just over a month for picking up our 21-foot escape travel trailer that we'll be moving into. We're going to do a series. This is going to be part one, the highs and lows of the downsizing process. Next week, we will have part two of the actual process where we have solutions to some of the downsizing quandaries that we'll talk about. But let's first give you a little background. We are actually not new to the downsizing process. Not that that makes us an expert or anything, but we have been through this once before.
A few years back, I moved from a big house into a 38-foot sailboat. The difference being that we had a large storage unit to put a lot of overflow into it. So I got to keep a whole lot of stuff that I'm not going to keep this time.
And when I lived in Alaska for 10 years. When I moved to Alaska from Seattle, I took the whole U-Haul truck thing up there, drove up the Alcan with all my stuff, and then when I moved back down here, I'm like, I'm not doing that again. So I did ship some things back, but not nearly the amount that I took up with me. But it's pretty amazing. Once you move back into a house again, we're in a 1,400 square foot house, how easily it is to refill up every single room. We have 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath house, and we've actually had to get rid. We have a lot of stuff to get rid of.
So let's get down to the nuts and bolts of how this can be both thrilling and agonizing, and how much of a roller coaster emotionally you can go through. So the first thing is how overwhelming it can be, especially if you have a lot of stuff you've been accumulating for a large amount of time, or maybe you might just be hitting on trying to get rid of a storage unit. Whatever the case may be, it can be overwhelming to get started. In our case, we had a deadline, which really helped. So we just decided to jump in and start.
So being overwhelmed is really, like Rhonda said, kind of the very first initial reaction. Where do I start? And that leads to a lot of stress. It's going to be a very stressful process to downsize, sell, get rid of, figure out what you're going to do with all of your things. And one of the first things is those sentimental value items. Things like this scrapbook we've had, things like your books that you've had for 50 years, 55 years, however long. We have such a small space, we literally just can't take all these things with us. And so that becomes a struggle, between partners when you're trying to negotiate what things you're going to take and what things you're not going to take. And for me, I've got this lovely blanket that my grandmother made for me. She made it for one for everybody in the family. And for me, this was not something that I wanted to part with. So Rhonda looks at this, or at least has in the past, look at it like some old lady crocheted blanket. We have other blankets that are more durable.
Not to say if you like crocheted blankets that there's anything wrong with them. It's just, I felt like we had a lot of other blankets. It's like, why do we need another blanket?
That are more durable for camping and RV life. However, after she realized the importance of this lovely blanket, and this guy really, right here, he loves it. This is one of his favorite blankets.
I caved.
So Rhonda caved, and it's all good, and Grammy's blanket is going with us in the RV. On top of the sentimental value stuff, the Mementos goes right along with it. All these things you've collected from your travels, those national park hats and t-shirts you may have bought, things you've collected along the way that help you remind of really cool stuff you've done and really cool places you've been to. That's another really difficult thing to figure out what to do with.
Could be even just wine glasses that you've picked up at wine tastings.
Yeah, because we had like dozens of those. Sometimes those things are hard to give up or get rid of just because you're afraid that you're going to lose that memory of those really cool things that you have done. Honestly, that scrapbook we had in our opening sequence, it's been years, honestly, since we've actually looked at it. And honestly, it's way too big for us to take. So we may end up taking a couple pictures, but really that's just gonna not go with us because it's just too large. And with everything we're talking about in part 2 of our series, we're gonna give you those solutions to help deal with these sentimental value items and these mementos.
Then there's the emotion associated to money. That is, I spent a whole lot of money on this, or I just bought it. How can I just get rid of it? An example might be I had a really expensive sweater and I hated to get rid of it. I'm still wearing it and it still looks good on me and all of those things. And yet, when I look at the broader picture of all of the other clothes I'm taking, it just doesn't fit in. It's not as flexible. I can't wear it as often, so I have to get rid of it.
We still had some clothes that had tags on them. That's how ridiculous this can be when it comes around money. I just bought this. It still has a tag on it. I've never worn it. I'm going to wear it someday. And then that someday doesn't come. So today is our someday, and bye-bye. So some things are really easy to get rid of. During this process, we found 7 fingernail clippers and 5 wrist braces. Who the hell has that many? Can you imagine even trying to use all of them at one time?
Yeah, who knows how we ended up with that, whether we couldn't find them and bought them, we were traveling and couldn't find them, or we merged them when we got together and never weeded through them. Who knows?
So, the huge positive is getting rid of extra stuff you don't need. Gives you a huge sense of accomplishment and a lot less stress. You can actually find stuff. Mind blown.
Yeah.
And because of that, it saves time and money when you're not rummaging, trying to find one of those 7 pairs of fingernail clippers. It saves you time, so you know where it's at, and it saves you money. I don't know how much money we have spent from buying something because we didn't think we had it, only to find out now that we're downsizing that we had 7 pairs. So it does save money when we don't have to rebuy things because we already know where it's at.
I will add that as we make progress and start to reduce what I will consider clutter, it makes us really happy because I don't like clutter. It's hard to clean around. I feel stressed about it. And the other part of it is that as you're making progress, you're trying to downsize, you can look back and you're starting to see progress. It's thrilling and it's really rewarding. So it's difficult up front and can be overwhelming, but at the end, when you start looking back at your accomplishment, it's thrilling and it's great. And we're both just really, really happy. It also makes the goal of moving into the RV feel like it's achievable, and that also makes us really excited.
So despite the emotional roller coaster, downsizing is so worth it, and we highly recommend it, whether you're moving into an RV or not. If you're downsizing your house or just want to declutter so that you have less stress, save time, save money, and all of those things, it's really very worthwhile just going room to room to start that. And please join us next week for part 2 in our series, where we're going to really share with you some of the really cool things that we found and that we did in order to help us with this process. So if you're downsizing, please join us next week for some real good solutions on getting through this process, because it is a lot of things to think about.
But going forward, we have new things to collect, patches. But notice the patches go on a pillow that we can actually use in the RV, multi-purpose.
So if this was helpful for you, please give us a thumbs up and think about subscribing to our channel. We'll give out content every week, and we'll be getting our RV in just over a month, and we'll cover all that and as we go full time from here on out. If you hit that bell, ding, 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 you also get notifications of when we have new videos out.
And if you have questions for us, please be sure to add those. Or if you have your own experiences you want to share, we want to hear them, because we're all in this together and we're doing this so that we can help others, and we're still learning too. So, help us.
Have a great day and happy travels.
Happy travels.